Hello everybody, welcome back to TED Talks with me, Scott and Andy.
Hi everyone.
This is part 2 from the previous one, episode 8. We did that Saturday morning, didn't we? It's now Wednesday evening, so we try to get it in pretty quick to let it flow naturally back into the conversation.
Yeah, let it flow so much that we've come straight from work. Are we going to regret this? Are you going to regret this? This could be the worst one ever.
No,
It's been a busy day. Client this morning, full day's work. Taxi driving this evening, unpaid taxi driving, I might add.
Chauffeur and the kids.
I say unpaid. I suppose in some respects, the payment for that is even greater for the gratitude that's shown, or not. So
teenage kids,
yeah, it's something you have to work on. You find yourself reacting. So yeah, it's nice to be a nice summer's evening. We said we'd get one in this week, so
yep.
we'll just see where it goes. It is a bit of a follow-on from Saturdays with the book Ladder of Divine Ascent.
Ascension, yeah. Ascent.
The Ladder of Divine Ascent, yeah.
Yeah.
And we sort of spoke about mourning during Saturday's session. I did write something down at work yesterday about that session, and I've completely forgotten what I wrote down, but the trusty notebook is never far away. So what I wanted to make a note of about Saturdays, what does that say? Do eye exercises. I haven't been doing them. Baptisms and confirmations, etc. We spoke about baptisms and confirmations on Saturday and how they, in HK sessions, you'll find that there's interdimensionals linked to them.
Mm-hmm.
The point I wanted to make about that is they've only come up, in my experience in HK, on courses.
Okay.
They haven't come up with people.
Right, okay.
So I just want to put people at ease. When you start talking about dimensionals and that, it's easy for me to sit here and say, we've got all the power, they haven't.
Mm-hmm.
But people say it's easy for you to say.
Yeah, of course.
But you know how the general public react to the unknown, to the paranormal and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're shitting bricks, basically. So, with that, what we said on Saturday, I don't want people going into a state of fear that they've got this entity or that entity in them.
Yeah, if they've been baptised.
Yeah, if they've been baptised or confirmed, etc. It doesn't work like that. The reason why I say that, from my experience, it's only come up on HK courses, because on a HK course we will do the priority of each issue that we look at. So stuff that will come up normally in a session, different aspects of a session that can bring up all sorts of different issues.
Yeah.
For the course, we will actually look at those individually, so the student gets a chance to actually work on that particular issue. Like I was saying, I've said it a number of times on here before, the majority of interdimensionals that we're clearing can either be spirits trapped in the field or internal, external entities, which are entities you've created yourself through a process of feeding that thought so often it almost becomes compulsion and you can't stop yourself from doing it, behaving that way, etc. So when people come to see me with an issue, the issues that they're dealing with aren't because some interdimensional entity has got hold of them and they're fucking around with them.
Yeah.
That was the point I wanted to make about the book.
Yeah.
Which I made at the beginning and maybe didn't go into enough detail about it. People come to see you, the issues they come with are the things that are affecting them most. And when that's the case, you'll find that they're not necessarily, most of the times, vast majority of the times, they're not traumatic experiences that they've actually have taken place. I'm not saying they haven't been through these traumatic situations. What the situation is that where that dimension was first activated can be something fairly innocuous.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, people shouldn't be concerned. When I had my interdimensional removed from when I was confirmed, I can't remember what the dimension was, so it wasn't really that much of a dimension that it was affecting me on a daily basis and I couldn't handle it. It's just really the courses are about clearing stuff so that you know how to work with it and how to deal with these things. And of course, if they come up with us in a session with a client, I will reiterate again, we hold all the power.
Yeah.
You make a decision with your own mind whether you want to think this or think that, or behave in this way or behave in that way. So you are in full control. When you give your power away and you go into someone else's game, say it be going, having been confirmed, etc., Holy Communions, then you're going into someone else's game, so therefore it's their rules.
Yeah.
So you're subject to their rules then.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're going to be taken over and all of a sudden you're going to be possessed and all the rest of it.
No,
It doesn't work that way.
No.
If it did work that way, the game would have been up a long time ago.
Yeah, 100%.
Where we're at with this is it's so subtle, that it's managed to remain in the shadows all this time. But just because it's in the shadows and it's remained hidden, don't underestimate the power of it either.
100%.
Because we all have an existence to a degree whereby we're not living to our full potential, our full joy and happiness. We're all just managing to get by because this world we live in is a training ground. But you can turn that training ground into a playground. You have that option.
Yeah, if you take back your own power.
Yeah, and if you so wish. So that was the one thing I wanted to mention. What was the other thing other than do your eye exercises?
You haven't been doing them enough by the looks of it.
I really haven't actually. Since we put the house on the market for sale, I took the eye chart down and it hasn't gone back up again.
Yeah.
And you get out of that habit, and because I've been doing a lot of close proximity work as well at work, been putting the glasses on more, so it affects you. Put the glasses on again, and it does.
Makes it worse.
Yeah, it sends your eyes back. So I think I've pretty much covered that. So you said something about an interdimensional might block me from bringing up topics with my partner. So it will just be a thought process. So you said on Saturday, so an interdimensional, you said if I'm struggling to bring an issue up and
or communicate with your partner about a certain issue.
Yeah, then that could be, you said that could be an interdimensional. That again, I think is giving too much power to the interdimensional. Again, it's your decision whether you do it or not. What we have found when we do courses is interdimensionals will fuck with you to stop you going on the course.
Right.
I've seen some crazy shit. Good friend of mine, Sue. Hi Sue, if you're watching. She put her sat nav on. She comes from Essex. The course was in Kent. She went to Kent the night before, get a good night's sleep, and then travelled the 20 minutes into to the venue.
Location, yeah.
And she put the sat nav on, and the sat nav took her home. When she realised she was crossing back over the Kent border into Essex.
Didn't want her to do that one.
She said, and that's not a one-off.
Yeah.
We've had so many examples of people getting just sidetracked, trains being late, trains not turning up, you name it, it's happened when people have made that decision that they want to come on the course. So that's when I suppose that the interdimensionals get active because they know they're going to get cleared.
Mhm.
So they'll do everything. I had an interesting scenario happen with me the night before I was coming on my first course, but really that's for off camera.
I don't even know if I want to know that.
It's not bad. It's just just something I shouldn't really repeat. I might get in trouble. So read into that what you want.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So that really, I just wanted to get that in and clear that up, even if I couldn't read it properly. It was important just for people to always remember this podcast is all about you knowing how much power you've got as an individual and using it in the right way, because there's no point in having power if you're then going to use it to manipulate and get what you want from necessarily a materialistic perspective, whether that materialism is, materialism you could consider isn't just necessarily getting money or getting goods with money. It could also be a case of you using it to manipulate people and get what you want as well. So it comes with a responsibility. You have to remember, once you realise that you have that responsibility, then you've got to take it serious.
Yeah. And we need to just bear in mind as well that what you put out is what you get back.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put out, manipulation, you're going to try and abuse things and, use things to your advantage, but not necessarily in a good way, should we say?
Yeah, acting out of integrity.
Then that will come back in some way, shape or form.
Especially once you realise that you have got, you are a spiritual being and you have got the power to create your own reality. Again, I've used that terminology. I must find a better terminology because I don't like that terminology. It smacks too much of materialism. But that's not the way I intend it to sound.
Yeah.
But so, whether people take that way,
literally or not,
that's down to them.
Creating your own reality, though, could be anything kind. It could be your mindset, like your state of mind, the way you feel. You create all of that. So you mean it from a broad spectrum of different things, not just you create your reality. Meaning I'm going to get this by then. So
I suppose the reason why I use that terminology kind of loosely for myself is because for me it's always been about that personal journey of
knowing the audience,
understanding myself, the ins and outs, the nuances, the dark areas, etc., shining the light on them, and basically navigating my way. The more you start to look at yourself, the more you realise this is a game that you have to navigate your way through. And so therefore when the hurdles come up, there's a better chance of you being able to be conscious of that and go, okay, how are you going to deal with this? I still react. But I don't react like I used to. I don't react as often as I used to. But saying that, sometimes the lessons come harder and faster. Depending
usually
on what.
Better as well.
Depending on what you put out there. If you're putting out there, I want to go and do 10 HK courses because I want to completely clear myself of everything so I can be a super practitioner. I can be super clear and super happy, and you kind of say, I'll do as many courses. Guess what? You're going to keep creating more issues for yourself.
There's the wrong intent behind it, isn't it? And you're giving your power away by saying that in a way as well, aren't you?
Well, it is so powerful that I've seen situations where people with next level imagination, we're talking about very creative people, very imaginative and creative, and I take my hat off to them with their creativity and the way they are. It's amazing, but what's happening is that they can be bringing issues in upon themselves because their mind is so wild to be creative that their mind is always working overtime, and so they keep on creating scenarios in their head which then manifest in real life.
And bring more and more.
And bring more and more issues for them to deal with. So it's a road less travelled.
Like attracts like, doesn't it? That's the simple way to put it.
Absolutely, yeah, it really does. So we said on Saturday that we were going to go on to step 8, which was freedom from anger and on meekness. So there was quite a few highlighted sentences in this book. Why? Why would there be an anger? Nothing to do with my anger issues that I had when I was younger? No.
I've not heard about them at all, Andy. Not once.
You haven't been speaking to enough people, brother. So, what I'll do is I'll just read some of the highlighted areas.
Yep.
And we can sort of delve into them a bit. So the first one was the beginning of freedom from anger is silence of the lips. When the heart is agitated, sorry, that's the not seeing the commas. The beginning of freedom from anger is silence of the lips when the heart is agitated. Comma. Not seeing it now. The middle is silence of the thoughts when there is a mere disturbance of soul, and the end is an imperturbable calm under the breath of unclean winds. So what's your understanding of that sentence?
So first off is you stop the reaction, you stop the projection of energy outwards, let's just say. Read the next part to me.
So that freedom of silence was the beginning, is the freedom, is the silence of the lips.
Yep.
When agitated. Middle is silence of the thoughts when there is a mere disturbance of soul.
Okay, so that's almost, to me that's saying you need to learn to not, so say you were to shout or bite at me about something, me not to just instantly think, So silence the lips first and then calm the mind of the thought process that you're having when you want to react to something like that.
Yeah. And the end is an imperturbable calm under the breath of unclean winds.
So just breathe your way. Yeah, I want to say that. Take a deep breath and just 0 point yourself, you know?
And this is the thing with the book. It comes up with, this is old school language almost. I don't know what year it was written. I'd have a look, but I wouldn't be able to see the type. So my understanding, the reason why I highlighted so many parts in this book is because I could see aspects of my life unfolding before me.
Rookie error there.
Rookie, schoolboy error. The beginning of freedom from anger is silence. I saw myself doing that years ago once I realised I had an anger issue, because you don't even necessarily have to understand you have an anger issue, because it's just the way you react. You think you're in victim mode, reaction mode, you'll just react and you think, well, if so-and-so didn't do that, I wouldn't have reacted. It's not my anger, I'm just showing you, you treat me like that and I'm going to do this, you'd say that and I'm going to do this. It's not me, I ain't got the anger problem. But
you have from your reaction.
When you realise, when you start to look at yourself, as I did, more and more, I was like, okay, so what I did was, rather than react, I would just go silent. But going silent didn't mean that I didn't have shit going on in my head.
Raging on the inside,
it didn't mean I wasn't, these things were going round and round in my head, and I was internalising them, which is not a good thing either, because when you internalise it, you're trapping the energy in you. You're trapping that energy inside you, so all you're doing is, that's going to build up more and more, like that pendulum of action and reaction, until that trigger gets flicked, and then you're on the react, and then it's all going to explode.
Tenfold.
So I was aware that I used silence of the lips when my heart was agitated. It says the middle is silence of the thoughts. That's when I've gone into silence, but instead of now going into these negative thought processes and spiralling down into a negative state, it's a case of
calming the mind.
Okay, silence the thoughts, and then thirdly, the end is an imperturbable calm under the breath of unclean winds. Now, what it means by that is, firstly, imperturbable means unable to be upset or excited. In other words, to have a calmness about you. Now, quite interestingly, I know when I'm doing these, see, calm. I did that on purpose. I said, make sure you text me halfway through. When I'm doing these podcasts, I had a good friend, Richard. Hello, Richard. If ever you watch this, you probably won't, because you said I'm a boring bastard when I do these. He told me to be more up and all the rest of it, more jolly. And then someone else said, can't remember who it was, but does Andy have any emotions? And I was just like, well, I see what you're both saying. I can see it, right?
I've been asked that a few times.
Yeah. So that was who I was referring to. I think the reason this subject matter is so big for people, anyone who chooses to go counselling doesn't do it lightly. Anyone choosing to go for counselling, they're going because they're stuck. They're fucked up. They're in a place where they don't know where else to turn, because we live in a culture and a society where just suck it up and get on with it. Right? Or use other coping mechanisms like go running, go boxing, go shopping, smoke weed, drink alcohol.
I knew that's coming next.
All these different coping mechanisms are accepted, and
that's the norm.
It's encouraged. Now, you might say, well, smoking weed isn't encouraged, taking drugs isn't encouraged. Yes, it is. In the Rebels world, in the music you listen to.
I was about to say, in all the music, TV, everything.
Anything that you can be a rebel to, and you can, two fingers up to the system, it's all there for you. Do you think that's an accident? That culture is there in the underground, on the streets? Of course not. It's not. You haven't got a culture of, go and seek help and become, a more spiritual being. Look at yourself. Where's that culture?
Even like become a more spiritual being is like, it's associated with like the hippie on the hill, whatever, smoking the weed and doing the drugs.
Absolutely.
You don't have to do them kind of things to be spiritual at all.
Look at that. Doing drugs, be spiritual, do drugs, smoke weed on the hill, do you know what I mean? Sit cross-legged. What you do, go out your game, give your power away, and then you're in the game with something else.
Ayahuasca is a big thing as well, isn't it?
Ayahuasca, we can do a whole podcast on ayahuasca, because it's been, it really, over the years, it was quite interesting, because I was very close. I was at a crossroads. I was going to go to Peru and do ayahuasca. The same year I found HK, and I did HK instead.
Good journey, good path that you went down.
Yeah, where would I be if I'd have done
that? I was going to say we wouldn't be here, would we?
No, absolutely not. So it's a situation for me whereby, because I'm talking about a serious subject, and when I'm having to be a mentor as such, because I was pretty much the same kind of energy when I was football coach for young lads. They all look up to you starry-eyed, because you're there.
Yeah, you're in that position of power.
You're in that position of power.
Yeah.
So you have to remain if you imagine someone coming in, they've got major issues online. I come in and I'm bouncing around, being all excited and all the rest of it. This ain't a podcast to entertain people.
No.
I don't care whether people say, oh, you're boring, or you've got no emotion, or you need to be more. I don't give a shit, because I'm not here to entertain anyone. I'm here to share some information so that people can actually take it on board and use it. If people want to see me all excited and come and watch me play football down at goals, I don't do it anymore. You want to see me having a laugh?
See one of the jungle raves.
The jungle raves. Come to the pub with me. I do exciting. I do lots of emotion, but there's a time to be imperturbable. And in this situation, it's important, because I'm taking that responsibility, that big position, responsible position of sharing this information, and it's too big to try and do it from a perspective well, let's have a laugh,
yeah,
and all the rest of it. Don't get me wrong. It would be nice to be able to bring that side into it as well. You know, look, I said to you, I love that guy Matt of Quantum of Conscience, because he's just having he's taking a piss all the time.
Pure sarcasm, the whole thing, isn't it?
And it's great. It's been great for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because he just takes the mickey out of the whole, and it's perfect. But he's not doing therapy work.
Yeah, I was about to say, some of the things we talk about are sensitive and very personal to others. Yeah. So they could be listening to help themselves.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and then I'm sitting there taking the piss.
Taking the piss and having a laugh.
I mean, you know, that for me shows no boundaries for those people. Do you know what I mean? So it is important from that aspect that that imperturbable aspect does come out within the podcast as well. So the end is an imperturbable calm under the breath of an unclean wind. So an unclean wind is basically saying, so even if things get a little bit rocky, a little bit, you'll just stay in that 0 point.
0 point,
basically.
We call it, don't we?
Yeah.
So you're a boring fucker because of everybody else then? That's what you're saying.
What's that?
You're a boring fucker because of everybody else.
Yeah, you're bastards. So anger is a reminder of hidden hatred.
Yeah. It's always a projection.
Yeah. That is to say, remembrance of wrongs that have been done to you. Anger is a desire for the injury of the one who has provoked you. So the injury might not necessarily be I want to throw him off a bridge.
Yeah.
But, you know, injury might be just, you know, shut him up.
Yeah.
And anger is uncontrollable at the end of the day. Well, it can be uncontrollable. So it doesn't even have to be, I want to physically hurt that person. It could just be the thought of just shut up. Do you know what I mean? Well, how are you going to shut them up then? How are you going to shut them? You know, how many times we've been in that situation with other, you know, in a male dominant situation.
Yeah.
What are you going to do then? What are you going to do? Told me to be quiet.
Yeah.
Make me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know.
The ego there, isn't it?
Well, it is the ego, but it's also the anger coming out. Because, as exactly as it just said there, anger is a desire for the injury of the one who has provoked you. Bitterness is a movement of displeasure seated in the soul. So, up until that one, I'm reading these and going, I can tick that box.
Yeah.
I can tick that box. Imperturbable when I'm doing a podcast. Maybe I should do 24-hour podcasts. I can do 0 point all the time. Yeah, I feel like I'm doing 24-hour podcasts at the moment up to today, but that's another story. When it came to bitterness is a movement of displeasure seated in the soul. In the mirror, I was like, I've never been bitter.
Yeah.
I think part of that has been because I've reacted and externalised quite often, you know, in my youth. So, yeah, never got to bitterness. I never became bitter, so there was never that displeasure seated in my soul.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just because I always had that connection with my spirit, even though I didn't think I had a connection with spirit.
Yeah.
It was there because I trusted my intuition. I knew there was something deeper going on and there was a bigger meaning to the world to a certain degree outside of the coping mechanisms of partying and you know, the other coping mechanisms used. And then peevishness is a changeable movement of one's disposition and disorder of soul. So peevishness is being easily annoyed and almost uncontrolled anger. So peevishness is a changeable movement of one's disposition and disorder of soul. So again, it's that deeper spiritual aspect of yourself. Okay. So the fragrance of humility, the fragrance of humility, all anger and bitterness vanishes. So this is where we spoke about humility the other day. The necessity of being humble can't be overstated enough.
I agree.
If you can maintain a humility and a humbleness about you, you will begin to diminish that bitterness and that anger for sure. Doesn't vanish overnight.
There's a lot at the moment of like be humble online on the socials, like across the successful people, you know, that kind of, it's a big thing. So I feel like the word is almost, you know, when a hype word has been used so much that it starts to lose its meaning.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there's been a push on that.
And this is the point. When it becomes the buzzword and it goes viral, it's going to be oversaturated, it's going to be overused, and it's not being used with meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
It's just the thing to say.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm humble. Yeah,
and that's been the case probably the last, I don't know, 5 years maybe.
Okay. So humility and humbleness is in actions, not in words.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's easy to say it, but can you act it? So they're two completely different things. And we ought not to forget, my friends, that the wicked demons sometimes suddenly leave us so that we may neglect our strong passions as of little importance and then become incurably sick. Now, passions in this context is a strong and barely controllable emotion.
Okay.
All right? So I'll read that again. The wicked demons sometimes suddenly leave us so that we may neglect our strong passions as of little importance and then become incurably sick. So from a HK perspective, saying that the wicked demons sometimes suddenly leave us, what it actually means, what he hasn't got the grasp of here, which, you know, I'm not poo-pooing him, although, as I said, the austerity in this book is palpable. It's that dimension isn't activated at that moment, so it goes dormant. But just because it's dormant doesn't mean it's gone. So something can happen which will then trigger that dimension off, and then, as I said to you earlier about, you know, keep it silent, don't react, but inside you're going and then what happens is the straw breaks the camel's back, and now what he's attributing that to is the demon's just playing a trick on you.
Yeah.
He's just hiding until you think you're done and you've gone and he's gone away, and then he's going to come back with a vengeance. Again, that's given too much power to the demon, as opposed to it's in your dimension, it's in your world. You have the power to clear that and change that moment so that that doesn't exist. And if there is an inner dimension there, that would come up and in the session, and it would be clear.
Yeah.
So I just thought, when you read a passage like that, you realise that the level of true understanding of what we are in the universe and how we are multidimensional beings in a multidimensional world. Multi isn't one or two.
Yeah.
It's infinite, really. And therefore it's it makes it easier to understand that from every dimension, any issues, etc., good or bad, are their own separate dimensions. And you ain't got wicked demons running around every dimension, you know, or you're possessed by it, and therefore it's a separate dimension that you can clear. If there's behaviours that are compulsive and you can't control, etc., and you want to. I thought that was important just to point that out. Okay, if it is a mark of extreme meekness, even in the presence of one's offender, to be peacefully and lovingly disposed towards him in one's heart, then it is certainly a mark of hot temper when a person continues to quarrel and rage against his (absent) offender, both by words and gestures, even when by himself. So what it's saying there is, if you're in the presence of the main offender, and you are at peace in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
then you're showing meekness in that moment. Remember, meekness is patience and humility, and having modesty of your own self-importance.
And also understanding that on the flip side of the coin, that the person who's triggering that issue or something that's also a self-projection of something within themselves as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, those people who may be the perpetrators,
which is where the humility comes in, isn't it?
Yeah, or the offenders. Once you see yourself,
mm-hmm.
and you see your triggers and you see the way you've behaved and your actions, when you see other people performing their behaviours and actions,
you understand it from
and
their
putting it onto an individual,
mm-hmm.
okay, whether it's an individual or whether it's a collective,
yep.
say a group,
mm-hmm.
okay, when they're doing that and they're projecting that on, it's actually coming from themselves,
yeah.
and they're just projecting it onto someone else because they don't realise it's theirs necessarily, or they don't want to face up to it being theirs, so it's easier to just blame someone else.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. And that's the world we live in.
Yep.
That's the world we're brought up to believe. It's the left's fault. It's the right's fault. It's the black man's fault. It's the white man's fault. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's never the Irish man's fault, though, so remember that.
Never.
Quite interestingly, just going off topic a little bit today, I watched, when I was at work today, I didn't watch, I listened. If the client's watching, I listened. Akala, Fire in the Booth.
Yes. I've got my thoughts about that person.
Okay, so this guy Akala is a British rapper. It was Americans reacting to him.
Okay.
And the first guy, I'm not doing any more shout outs because only Archaics and Quantum of Conscience getting my seal of approval, because of the responsibility of what they say.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy I listened to, the first one, it was alright. He virtually stopped at every 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and he gave quite a good account. He's quite educated, and he could see he was making some good points on everything he said and wasn't going too far down the reactionary road. And then for the next 4 or 5 videos that once that finished,
mm-hmm.
that came up, were all first time reactions for that video.
Right, okay.
Now if I listen to an Archaics or Quantum of Conscience video, never once in the last 4 or 5 years do you get another Archaics video come up.
Yep.
You'll get something random come up, or something by Diary of a CEO come up. Don't get me started.
No, don't get me started.
33 ways to be a free mate. What's it called?
Yeah.
33 ways to be a businessman. Oh my goodness. Come on, please.
33 ways to be controlled.
Yeah, imperturbable now. Come on. So.
They're watching early.
So, literally, all 4 of the next videos were from more black Americans, and all of them got on the bandwagon. One of them in particular was like, I can't even listen to Charlie Sloth at the end. I'm not even going to listen to that white shit.
Right.
Because they've only brought into the fact that white people have made black people slaves, and you've stopped us from being who we should be.
Yeah. Whereas,
there's enough messages in there to show that if you're a balanced person, you'll see that he is saying that it's, if you're working class, don't matter what your colour, because he's mixed race anyway,
mm-hmm.
no matter what your colour, if you're working class, you're not sitting at their table. But going on to that next level is he's still, in my opinion, only listened to that 1 8-minute session, is he's still buying into the divide and rule. He's still creating division.
Yeah, so when I said I've got my opinions on this person, I don't know him, never met him, anything like that, don't consume much of his content at all, but the few things that I have seen, straight away it flagged up in my energy field. Let's just say that it was maybe controlled, or something didn't sit quite right.
Right.
Whether that, yeah. As Mr. 33 CEO, businessman, Dragon.
Yeah, with him
That's the same.
That was pretty obvious from the start whether this other guy rapper is or not.
Very intelligent.
Yeah, intelligent
very,
man.
Very intelligent
man. But
and he brings awareness to a lot of things that do need awareness brought to him.
Yeah, there's certain aspects, but
I just don't get the angle of it. Has always been that's the way to put it.
Right.
It's not necessarily him; it's the angle where what he's saying comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if I compare his message compared to Harry Mack's, for example, what is Harry Mack? How does he perform that level of knowledge, understanding and skill to be able to rap off the dome, freestyling on any subject, anytime, with wit and, you know,
charismatic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But his message is always one of positivity and love.
Yeah.
So therefore, whatever he is, however he's done it, you're sending out that, and you see the reactions to people on the video. He makes people's days. You know what I mean?
That's it. Whereas with the Akala, it's almost he's trying to
create,
drill that wedge in deeper.
There's us and there's them.
Between, yes, that's exactly what I mean when I said the angle.
The moment you're creating that us and them, what you're doing in that moment is you are adding to
the fire.
Yeah, the divide and rule.
It's the same. There's an economics guy called Gary Stevenson. He brought out a book recently called The Trading Game, which is actually a really good book to listen to if you're into that sort of thing. And he's gone viral from his social media, what he's been putting out.
Right.
And it's tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich.
Right.
So now he's a clever man. He understands what's going on in the economy. He understands how the poor are getting poorer, the rich are getting richer. He's saying it needs to be more fairer. So his message may be correct. People may believe him. What his message is
He's
correct.
a Marxist then.
But again, all that's doing is just hitting the wedge deeper between the nut milks and.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and you know, we're not sitting here trying to make out that they shouldn't be taxed, or the system is fair. It's not the point. We go back to you can't change the world.
Yep.
You can only change yourself. Yep. Change it and create the universe you want for yourself. So you can live in this world, but live in your own universe.
That's where I think social media, things like this, they just completely strip you from focusing on yourself.
Yeah.
It just pulls your attention, your energy, everything away from. Well, hang on, let me actually focus on the inside. Well,
it does get you to focus on yourself, but the material side of yourself, how you look, how you're perceived by others.
Yeah.
It's that focus of self rather than the inner self.
Yeah.
So it's the exterior, always the exterior.
Yeah. The projected image.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, so we said a mark of extreme meekness, even in the presence of one's offender, is to be peacefully and lovingly disposed towards them in one's heart. And then on the flip side of that, it's a mark of hot temper when a person continues to quarrel and rage against his absent offender, both by words and gestures, even when by himself. So it's that, that anger that comes up, that hot temperness that comes up, even though the person that may have done you wrong, persons aren't even about, but you've still got that inside you.
Yeah.
And it's realisation that this needs to be looked at. I need to have a word with myself. So,
pretty self-explanatory then.
Yeah, nourishing resentment within them under the cover of silence. Now, nourishing resentment within them under the cover of silence. Yeah, that is a very short sentence, but that one hit home hard. So that ties into what we said earlier about being silent. Nourishment of resentment. So in that silence, but you've still got resentment going on. because there's something that's just happened. There's something, you know, being silent. Oh, I'm being silent. I'm being quiet. You're not at 0 point, and you know you ain't found the Holy Grail. Do you know what I mean? It's like
still building up inside you.
Yeah, if you've still got that negative thought process going on and that resentment going on, then it's, you know, it's something for myself, which I was like, okay, more work to do, back to the table. All right, so that was, you know, this has been going on for years. This isn't over the last 6 months. This is something that I've been working on in myself for a long time, and it doesn't mean it's for everyone it's got to take a long time. For me, I have to learn something, absolutely the ins and outs of it, and all the nuances that come with it. Probably because I always felt, as I said when I first started doing this podcast, I was going to write a book, I was going to write books. I thought about doing a podcast for a long time. I've got untold books on the shelves which are dog-eared, etc., because I thought this information needs to be shared. So I guess it's always been a thought process in me that I need to share this information. So for other people to get hold of, and so maybe their journey doesn't have to be quite so stretched out. Yeah. They can come to the realisations and see
a lot quicker.
See where my pitfalls have been.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't even aware that nourishing resentment was going on in silence, and I was, you know, I was miles away from where I wanted to be, but I was thinking, okay, stop reacting now. No, I haven't stopped. I've stopped reacting verbally, but not internally.
Yeah.
And through their unreasonable abstinence, they only added poison to poison. That one might be a bit difficult to go through. Sometimes singing in moderation successfully relieves the temper, but sometimes, if untimely and immoderate, it lends itself to the lure of pleasure. That was a very interesting one. Not something I've done, but I've seen it close at hand. Sometimes singing in moderation successfully relieves the temper, so you can use, you know, singing, maybe dancing, whatever, to relieve the temper, you know, the emotion coming up. But sometimes if it's untimely and immoderate, it lends itself to the lure of pleasure. So in other words, using it as a coping mechanism, and just, I want to go into this pleasure state, as opposed to, well, what's going on here, looking at it a bit closer.
Yep.
And this one was like, this was a harsh one. But the angry person, like a wolf, often disturbs the whole flock and offends and discourages many souls. So, as an angry person, when you look fully in the mirror at yourself and what you've done, you're not just, you know, the anger is within you, and it's that self-hatred really within yourself. I remember one of my early counselling days, the counsellor said to me, her timing was immaculate. She said, Andy, do you love yourself? And she timed it so well, because it was at such a poignant moment, and that was it. I just couldn't speak. It was such a powerful time and such a powerful moment. It was the first time I'd really even thought about it.
Yeah.
And I realised, no, I don't. And this, I was what, 43 at this time, 44. And it's the first time I'd actually even considered, well, do I love myself? And I realised, no, I don't. So, you know, if you don't love yourself, even more so if you don't even like yourself, you're going to be angry. You can't love anyone else.
I was about to say that.
Until you love yourself.
Yeah. And not in a, people see
not
it
in a vain.
It's loving and like an acceptance, like you accept yourself for who you are, and that kind of thing, isn't it? As opposed to, oh, I love myself. Yeah.
There's a very big difference between loving yourself through vanity and loving yourself within who you are, you know, warts and all. a couple more to go through. I think we're doing all right for time. We've got about 10 minutes. If we are observant, we shall see that many irritable people are practicing vigils, fasts and silence. For the aim of the demons is to suggest to them, under the pretext of penance and mourning, just what is likely to increase their passion. So penance is an action performed to show sorrow and seek forgiveness. And we know what mourning is. Mourning is basically an expression of grief or a big loss. And customs or rituals that are accepted within the society and using mourning to show that. So if we see that many irritable people are practicing vigils, fasts and silence. So I looked at myself and thought, vigils, fasts and silence. I do the silence, I do fasting, and I'm like, blimey, I'm fitting into this category again. So why the fasting? Why the vigils? Why the silence? That's all part of the spiritual journey that I've been on for a period of time without knowing necessarily I'm doing this spiritual journey. It's just what comes up within.
Following your intuition.
So I suppose following the intuition for sure. I suppose the fasting for me was a form of self-discipline.
Yep.
Because if you can have self-discipline to fast and by not eating for a certain period of time, then you're having some control over your instincts,
emotions, the emotions that come up when you're hungry and all of it.
So you can see how that would tie in. The aim of the demons is to suggest to them, under the pretext of penance and mourning, just what is likely to increase their passion. So again, for me, it's kind of like, well, you're giving too much power to the demon. Where this book for me is kind of like goes a bit skew with you're giving away your power. It's not, again, we've gone into that in a bit of detail anyway. And if we say a single wolf with the help of a demon can trouble a flock, then certainly one most wise brother with the help of an angel can make the waves abate and the ship sail calmly. And you have one big mofo exclamation mark next to that.
Yeah.
And what's the big red flag there? With the help of an angel.
Giving your power away again.
Giving you a power away. Now, through HK, what do we know angels to be? It's up to you to find out. Maybe if you listen to a guy called Cameron Day. I listened to a guy called Cameron Day back in, I think it was probably about 2013, and he had some amazing, he was the first guy I really listened to who spoke about the New Age at a level of, do you really know what you're letting yourself in for when you go into the New Age? Guardian angels this and guardian angels that, and he'd obviously had these experiences and was working within the industry, and was just like, he had a lot of experiences and knowledge about it. And I'm listening to this, and it was captivating listening, because it was, again, one of those things where you're listening to it and it's just singing to your spirit. You just know this is exactly what it is. Exactly. The interesting thing about that, when I'd listened to, I was working on a big house and I had to decorate a lot of the house. So I was there for about 6 weeks. And I did pretty much Cameron Day back to back for a week or two. Where was I working? Where was this house?
Go on.
I had 3 guesses. Wrong. Portal Avenue. You couldn't make it up.
No, you couldn't.
You could not make it up.
No.
Portal Avenue. And I was like, fascinating. Again, it's a synchronicity that you're just like, no, this isn't.
Like a little confirmation there, isn't it?
This isn't by chance. So yeah, it's the the good point to make here is you can see how there's some fabulous information in here.
Yeah.
And then with one slip of a word, you can undo all of that and give all your power away and go into someone else's game.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think a lot of the books, a lot of the material that we read that are self-help, should we say, beneficial to self, they miss that one aspect, don't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the most important part, and that all comes down to discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And discernment is basically the marrying of your intuition with being streetwise.
Mm-hmm.
The two go hand in hand, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, definitely.
Last couple, I've noticed what a sorry sight angry people presented due to their self-esteem, though they themselves were unaware of this, for they get into a state of anger and then they become still more angry at their defeat. So again, that's fairly self-explanatory. And then the first step in the cure should be a diagnosis of the cause of each disease. So there was a truth bomb in there. So what do we do when clients come in for a HK session? Write down your issues. What are your issues? How do you react to them? What's your reaction? What keeps coming up and you're not able to deal with? So the first step in this case should be a diagnosis of the cause of each disease. So you're looking at what are your triggers? What are those triggers that are causing that? What can you do to change your reaction to those triggers? Then it says, for when this for each disease, for when this is discovered, the patients will get the right cure from God's care and from their spiritual physicians. So spiritual physicians, that's
sus.
It's a bit sus. Do you mean they're your spiritual physicians? Do you mean your spiritual angels? Is that what you meant? They're all physicians. No? How about just your own spirit?
Yeah.
Because the moment that went plural and not singular, it took away your power. And then, in conclusion on this chapter, it said, for the 8th step is appointed the crown of freedom from anger. He who wears it by nature will perhaps wear no other crown, but he who has won it by sweat has conquered all 8 together.
Right.
That was powerful. So, it's almost like a game of snakes and ladders, isn't it?
Yeah. You got around it.
Yeah, you could, if you're going to put the effort in and you're going to trust your intuition, you're going to trust your discernment, be streetwise with yourself as well as those around you, and you have that intention, you can
navigate through.
Yeah, and not have to go through 8, 9, 10, 11 doors. You can, you can make that leap, but it's something that you've got to make that decision.
Yeah.
And that
commitment to as well.
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
You have got to make it as a commitment of like, this is where.
It's not going to be easy. You're going to put in the work.
Yeah. So, that's the hour done.
Yeah.
And we've finished the chapter on anger and meekness. So I hope people have got something out of that. For me, it was a big chapter to read, just because I was seeing my own journey through the chapter, and helping me realise that it's an ongoing thing, and it's something that you still need to work on to a degree. But I've always been a bit hard on myself like that. Other people will notice a change, but I'll still be looking at the frayed parts.
Yeah.
But that's just how I am, and it's understanding it to a level where I can then share those little tricks of the trade that get you through those next bits and pieces. So, I hope you all got something out of it anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. We'll get that one in the next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah.
I'll try and get this one up ASAP as well.
Yeah.
It took, the last episode took 12 hours to upload.
Did it really?
Now the only issue I think I'm having is just that because I do everything on my phone. When I'm uploading it on my phone, then if I get a call or a message or something come through that I respond to, it almost halts the upload.
Yeah.
So then I have to go back on and it almost so every time. So I'm gonna have to almost sort of set it overnight and leave it to just upload overnight, and then yeah, I think that's what it is. Either that or it just generally takes that long.
Right.
But we'll sort it out.
Yeah.
We'll get another one out then fairly soon
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Thanks everybody.
Cheers, guys.